Today we'll be covering Warriors of the Wind.
Nope. No. No. Today we'll be doing the accurate release of Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind.
We're not sure if you can see that on screen.
Can't really get that close
Yeah.
because pandemic's still going on.
Yeah.
So
See,
please,
we're doing social distancing.
please enjoy the video. Hopefully.
Yeah. A man on a chocobo, or some other giant rideable bird, finds a destroyed village covered in toxic spores. A giant dragonfly fills the sky. The narrator explains that the world was destroyed 1,000 years ago, and now the toxic jungle is slowly spreading across the land.
This is set in a post-apocalypse? I thought it was a fantasy.
This movie managed to be both. We are then introduced to the film's titular heroine Nausicaä as she explores the toxic jungle. She then finds a molted shell of a massive insect called an ohm and decides to take the eyeball portion back to the village.
The toxic jungle then begins releasing spores as Nausicaä marvels at its beauty, though she states how toxic the spores are, explaining why she wears the respirator mask. She then hears something and goes to investigate, spotting an ohm chasing someone. She shoots a flare, and the person being chased responds with one of their own, and Nausicaä heads off to help them. She finds the man riding the bird, and they are joined by the enraged ohm.
After stunning the ohm with a flash grenade, using a bomb to calm the ohm down, leading it away to save the man. She returns with the man Yappa, a friend of her father's, who shows her a small fox squirrel that Nausicaä calms by letting it bite her to show that she's harmless. Nausicaä reveals that things in the Valley of the Wind aren't as well as they were the last time he visited before taking off for her valley to announce Yappa's arrival.
Well, that's nice of her. The Valley of the Wind welcomes the traveler back with open arms, and after visiting with the villagers, Yuba meets with Nausicaä's father, the king. Yuba reveals that the other kingdoms are not nearly as peaceful as the Valley of the Wind, and the blind old woman, Obaba, tells Nausicaä a prophecy of a man clad in blue that will bring peace to the land.
One man will bring peace? Yeah, right. I'm a man, and I don't like to bring too much peace. That night a storm rolls in, and the guards are worried that something isn't right. Nausicaä spots an airship approaching the valley, and Yappa realizes it belongs to the kingdom of Teriyaki.
Hank, it's pronounced Tolmekia.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep calling it Teriyaki. Nausicaä does her best to guide the falling ship, which is being attacked by insects, but it's crashed, and the village heads out to help any survivors. Nausicaä tries to rescue the sole survivor, a princess from the kingdom of Pejite, who pleads to burn the cargo of the ship before passing away. The villagers find an insect in the wreckage that's been riled up, but Nausicaä calms it with her bull roar and guides it back to the jungle.
The villagers destroy the spores they find, working to prevent the spread of the toxic jungle. The cargo of the airship is seemingly untouched by the fire, and Yupa tells of a rumor he heard that a giant warrior that had destroyed the world in the days of old had been unearthed in Pejite, and suspects that Tolmekia had kidnapped the Pejite princess to get their hands on the warrior.
Oh, no. Not the warrior.
Wait, what warrior are you thinking of?
I don't want to say. Okay, it's the ultimate warrior.
No, the giant warriors that destroyed the world, these ones.
Ah, okay. Then more teriyaki warships arrive in the valley, and the soldiers begin invasion of the village, murdering the king. When Nausicaä finds her father dead, she fights against the soldiers, but Yappa stops her from fighting. Yappa chastises Teriyaki for the unprovoked attack, and Teriyaki Princess Kushana tells the soldiers to stand down, claiming she and her soldiers are come to talk.
Kushana addresses the villagers, announcing their plan to burn the toxic jungle to the ground using the power of the giant warrior. Obaba claims that they cannot burn the forest, lest the Ohm rampage, as they have before, and she reveals that they murdered the king, which incites the villagers. Nausicaä calms the villagers down, asking the villagers to do as the Tolmekians say to prevent further suffering.
Clever girl. The soldiers get to work moving the giant warrior as they're ordered to transport the giant warrior to Teriyaki. However, Kushana knows that they cannot accomplish such a feat with even their largest ship. She intends to awaken the monster in the valley, though if only to keep it out of the hands of the leaders of Teriyaki. She tells her second-in-command, Katoa, to begin trying to wake the giant warrior. Kushana intends to leave with Nausicaä and 5 other hostages to Pejite the next morning, telling the villagers to prepare for their departure.
Some of the villagers agree to accompany the princess, and Yupa goes to look for her, finding her secret lab. Nausicaä informs Yupa that the plants in her lab are not poisonous, despite having origins in the toxic jungle, revealing that the soil of the jungle is the cause of the toxins, not the plants themselves. She had intended to find a cure for her father's illness, but now that he's dead, she no longer desires to maintain the lab, and is upset over how quickly she turned to violence when her father was killed.
That is a good point. The next morning, Nausicaä and the other hostages leave with the Teriyaki. A Pejite gunship follows close behind the Teriyaki warship, which are traveling close together as though expecting an attack.
Gunship? I thought it was a gunhead!
The gunship attacks one of the warships, which goes down and continues to attack the other, releasing the Bargo holding the hostages. Nausicaä pleads with the pilot of the gunship stop fighting when the gunship is hit and starts on fire. Nausicaä and one of the villagers pilot the gunship with Kushana as a passenger, flying down into the poison cloud to rescue a Bargo.
Unfortunately, the tow line is broken, preventing the gunship from towing the barge. Nausicaä removes her mask and orders them to dump their cargo in order to survive. They manage to make it through the cloud, though Nausicaä inhales some of the poison, and they manage to safely land in the forest's lake.
At least they made it safely.
Well, at least as safely as a crash landing can be.
Better than a crash. Unfortunately, since Kushana is with them, she holds them at gunpoint. Nausicaä informs her that firing her gun would be a terrible idea, that the insects of the jungle are riled up from the warship that crashed moments earlier. Kushana shoots in an attempt to assert her dominance, but Nausicaä asks what she's afraid of. The lake then shifts as the are curious about the intruders as Nausicaä tries to calm them down, much to everyone's surprise. Nausicaä learns from the that the pilot from Pejite is survived. Soon enraged insects swarm past them, and Nausicaä decides to go find the Pejite pilot, ordering the soldiers that joined her to return to the Valley of the Wind if she doesn't return within an hour.
She's got some good leadership skills. The pilot is being chased by the insects of the forest, and when he jumps from a ledge to avoid a swarm, Nausicaä swoops in and saves him from being eaten by a flying insect. She tells him that because of the insect he killed, her attempts to calm the insects would be futile, and her glider is hit by the tail of the flying bug, knocking them down into the jungle floor. The two get dragged down into the quicksand. After 2 hours, the others are still waiting for Nausicaä.
Now that's some loyalty. Nausicaä has a flashback to her younger days when she encountered a young Ohm and tried to hide it from the soldiers of the Valley Hidden in the Wind, who take it from her to start that humans and insects cannot live in the same world. Nausicaä wakes up and finds herself in an underground cavern filled with beautiful plants and clean water. The Pejite pilot, voiced by Shia LaBeouf, introduced himself as Asbel.
We're just gonna keep calling him Shia LaBeouf, though.
Shia LaBeouf reveals that they're under the jungle and, for some reason, are able to breathe without needing their mask.
Well, that's a good thing to know. Nausicaä decides to explore this strange place and discovers the sand is similar to the well from the valley, and realizes the sand comes from the fossilized trees of this underground forest. Shia LaBeouf reveals that the Pejite princess that had died was his twin sister. Nausicaä shares some bad-tasting nuts with Shia LaBeouf, telling him they're apparently good for them. Nausicaä speculates that the fossilized trees absorb the poison from the ground to purify the earth, and that the insects guard the forest so they can continue to purify the earth. Shia LaBeouf is certain that humanity would die out before they could be finished, and that humanity needs to learn to stop the toxic jungle first. Nausicaä then compares the Pejites to the Tolmekians, which riles up Shia LaBeouf, but Nausicaä suggests they get some sleep.
They're right, we should get some sleep. Dude, when they're right, they're right. Back with the teriyaki soldiers, they're set up a small fortress around the giant warrior cocoon. Cortella gets a report about the attack teriyaki ship and opts to suppress the information from the valley. Yappa meets with the villagers and the recently returned hostages that Yappa decides to let Kasana go as long as she destroys the giant warrior in the acid lake. She tells them that it can't be destroyed by acid and that it can't be moved before it wakes, so there's nothing they can do, especially now that information about the giant warrior has started to spread. It's revealed that Kushana's armor has been hiding her disfigured body, and that is her motivation for destroying the insects in the jungle.
Children arrive to inform them that some spores survived and are now spreading through the valley, leaving the villagers in a panic. Kurotoa orders that the villagers be given their tools to battle the spread of the spores, which infects more trees than they could have anticipated, and the villagers are forced to burn the forest, blaming the Tolmekians. Kushana secretly releases herself.
Nausicaä and Shia LaBeouf exit the jungle and head to Pejite, spotting a horde of dead insects. They find the Pejite capital, which has been destroyed by attacking insects. They spot an airship that's landing, and they go to investigate and find the soldiers, who reveal that their Pejite intend to use an injured baby Ohm, lead the Ohm on a chase to destroy the valley hidden in the wind to recover the giant warrior. Nausicaä pleads for them to stop their mad plan and reveal the truth of the toxic jungle, and Shia LaBeouf tries to help her escape, but both are taken prisoner.
Can't we all just get along?
Nope, because people gotta be jackasses.
The valley revolts against the Tolmekians, and a tank is hijacked by the old men, and Kurotoa learns that Kushana is alive. The Pejite airship is spotted by the Tolmekians, and aboard, a pair of Pejite women help Nausicaä to sneak out of her confines to escape, with one of the Pejite girls disguising herself as Nausicaä. The older woman, Asbel's mother, feels sorry for what their kingdom has chosen to do, and asks Nausicaä for forgiveness before leading her away from the soldiers. With Shia LaBeouf's help, Nausicaä is able to get to her glider.
Woo! Teamwork! A teriyaki airship appears, attacking the Pejite airship. When it rises above the clouds, a second teriyaki ship comes down above, trying to pin the Pejite airship against the cloud so they can board. As the teriyaki begin boarding the Pejite ship, Shia LaBeouf tells Nausicaä to leave and warn the valley hidden in the wind, telling her that he and his mother will never forgive themselves if it was to be destroyed. Nausicaä glides away from the Pejite ship, heads to the Valley of the Wind.
While escaping, Nausicaä is saved by a gunship from the valley, piloted by Mito, one of the villagers, and she tries to warn them of the coming stampede. The Tolmekians are trying to break down a door on the Pejite ship, and Nausicaa's gunship is spotted. Yupa shows he's a badass, defeating numerous Tolmekian soldiers. Kushana tells Kurotoa to wait until Nausicaa returns, as she's curious to see if the girl made it back alive. She tells the old men to advise the people of the valley to surrender, but they tell her they intend to live in harmony with the toxic jungle. Kurotoa admits he kinda admires Kushana now, and she tells him to prepare for an attack in an hour.
When it's time to go to war, it's time to go to war.
Make love, not war.
Ooh. The wind has died, which surprises the villagers. Obaba is asked to be taken outside, where it declares that the air is saturated with anger. After the gunship clears the jungle, Nausicaä tells Imo to idle the engine and glide as a massive swarm of Ohm are on the warpath. Meadow sends out a flare, illuminating the Pegite craft that's carrying an injured baby Ohm to lure the Ohm horde. Nausicaä discards her glider from the gunship, telling Meadow to warn the valley.
She's trying to save that baby Ohm! The gunship is spotted, and Kushana decides that time's up and orders her men to begin the attack. Kushana then spots the returning gunship and orders her men to cease fire. Mito lands and tells everyone that Nausicaä is trying to save the valley. As the villagers begin to evacuate, Kushana decides it's time to wake the giant warrior.
Nausicaä is nearly shot down, but approaches with her arms stretched, showing she has no weapon. One of the Pegite soldiers shoot away, injuring her, and she jumps into the craft, causing it to crash. Nausicaä approaches the injured baby and apologizes for being unable to keep this from happening, asking it to forgive humanity's stupidity. When the Ohm tries to join the others, Nausicaä pleads for it not to move to avoid further injuring itself.
She cares for all the animals. The Ohm horde approach en masse, and Nausicaä does her best to keep the baby from entering the acid lake, burning herself in the process. This causes the young Ohm to stop, realizing her pain. The Ohm horde then change direction, heading towards the valley, blinded by their rage, and the Tolmekians fire upon the horde. While the Pegite soldiers try to right their craft, Nausicaä demands at gunpoint that they take her to the herd of Ohm.
As the Teriyaki deal with the Ohm and the villagers, Kushana unleashes the unstable giant warrior, which fires a powerful beam at the stampeding Ohm. The Ohm survives that attack. Kushana demands the giant warrior listen to her orders, but the massive creature begins to die, melting into goo. Obaba claims that the rage of the Ohm is the rage of Earth. They have decided that humans deserve to die. Nausicaä steps in front of the raging insects with the baby. The Ohm attack Nausicaä, throwing her into the air, and continue their attack on the humans.
From the Pegite ship, Yupa and Shia LaBeouf witness the Ohm calm down, and the baby mourns Nausicaa's death, causing the Valley of the Wind to grieve. The Ohm lift Nausicaa's body up with their golden tendrils, healing her and restoring to life. Nausicaä awakens and thanks the Ohm for sparing the valley, and begins walking across the tendrils that surround her. When the children describe Nausicaa's blue dress and the appearance of her walking through a golden field, Obaba realizes that Nausicaä is the hero of the prophecy, as the wind returns to the valley.
The Ohm return to the toxic jungle. Princess returns, and more stuff happens during the end credits. The Teriyaki depart, the villagers begin rebuilding, and Azubel joins Yappa in his journey. Nausicaä, Valley of the Wind, was a very good movie. I give it 2 thumbs up.
I agree, it was a fun and exciting movie.
The designs of the bugs were awesome.
Yeah, they are, and the English dub is really good too.
Well, it's better than the dub of the original.
Yeah, that one was a butchering of that movie.
Yep.
This movie did so well, the director Hayao Miyazaki formed Studio Ghibli.
And they went to make several fantastic movies.
And these are just the ones that Hayao directed.
It's a very nice collection.
Yeah.
And this movie does get a little dark at some points.
does, but that does help to make it a great movie. Highly recommended.
And it's time to bring this episode of Kaiju Review to an end. I'm Tank.
I'm Protomet, but before we go, remember to wash your hands.
Yeah, and be safe out there, our friends and fans. And from us at Gamezillong,
Bye.